All right, folks, just getting started here. Just making sure that the streams are streaming. Cool, I think that's working. We're doing something a little different today. If you're on Instagram, you're not watching this. I'm not streaming to Instagram today. I got my TikTok access back, so if you're watching this or you're watching the recorded version, if you're a TikTok user and you would prefer to watch on TikTok, the stream should be available again on TikTok. I'm just making sure the Substack one's going, and it looks like it's going. Cool. I like pulling that up because I don't get the chat unless I go to Substack. Thank you for letting me know the stream's working on YouTube. I appreciate it. Awesome stuff. Okay, cool. Welcome, folks. If you're new to these live streams, these are very much like an AMA kind of format. So if you have questions and stuff you want answered about career development, software engineering, things like that, please jump in the chat if you're comfortable doing that. Just cat hair. Ask away anything you want. I would much rather spend time answering questions in the chat. If there's anything I can try and help with, I would like to do that. And of course, I do have a topic for every live stream, and it's always based on the newsletter article that I published the weekend prior. And that newsletter article is almost always based on Code Commute. So if you watch or consume my content on different channels and stuff, Code Commute, I vlog basically every day, whether it's CrossFit or like my drive to CrossFit or to work. And I try to answer questions that way. Then I take that content, I make it into a newsletter article that goes out on the weekend, and then I do this live stream. And so hopefully if you if you consume the content somewhere, you'll know the topic. Otherwise, happy to have you just on the live stream. But I'm going to put the link to the newsletter article into the chat. It's just at weekly.devleader.ca. So if you don't have access to the chat, that's where it's at. It is a email newsletter, and I remind people every time, no, you don't have to sign up and get the email. You can treat it just like a blog post. So if you want to know what the live stream is going to be about, generally you can just go to weekly.devleader.ca and see what's going to be posted up there. And yeah, I think that's all the logistics stuff. I guess one more quick note that I'm super excited about is today was the day on my main YouTube channel, which is DevLeader, because I have several YouTube channels. The primary one, my main original YouTube channel, just reached 14,000 subscribers today, which is pretty cool. It's taken a long time. I think some people do it much faster than I do. That's okay. But yeah, 14,000 subs. It's almost been like just under 3 years of actually producing content regularly. I'm a little behind on videos for that channel, actually. So I sent some over to the editor after this past weekend, and I'll have more that I'll film this week as well. So very excited about that. Like I said, it's slow moving, but it's cool to see the progress. So with that said, today's topic is going to be about a code commute topic that came up, and someone was asking about, what's a good way to say this? Like, they had a handful of different things that they were thinking about for how they want to spend time and energy in college as a software developer. And so in the newsletter article, there's a little bit more general advice, but the motivation behind this one was I just want to give a little bit of background so that people understand like why the newsletter article was kind of framed maybe a little bit of a certain way, and maybe some of the things we'll talk about today. But this individual actually was getting a little bit of income from like freelancing and stuff like that. So I thought that was super cool. I don't think a lot of people realize that, like, it's one thing to be able to say like I can program things or I can write code. It's another thing, to be doing that kind of work full time, building systems and teams and stuff like that, and that's awesome. And it's another whole completely different set of skills to be able to do freelancing successfully. I don't like again. I just think that people underestimate the amount of effort and the skill set that requires. So for example, when you're freelancing, you don't just like sit down and write code and then like money shows up. That would be cool. I would just be sitting in this room writing code and letting the money pile. But it's not really how it works. You have to do a lot of like selling and marketing and stuff like that, and it can be uncomfortable. But it's a set of skills that you have to go build. And so when I talk to individuals that have some freelancing experience, I just like reminding them, like, hey, I know that for a lot of them that I talk to, at least, they're like, yeah, I do this, but I'm really, trying to get my first job, or I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that. And I just like pausing them for a moment to remind them, like, hey, just so you know, it's super cool that you actually have like clients that are paying you money to go build things. And like, not a lot of people will do that. And I am transparent with them. I'm like, I've been programming for, I don't know what it is now, like 22 plus years, 23 years, whatever, like 15 of those professionally. And like, I don't have any freelancing jobs ever. And like, for me to go do sales and marketing for myself to try and get clients like that kind of scares me. Like, I'm not skilled at it yet because I haven't spent a lot of time doing that. But the thought of it kind of makes me uneasy because I'm like, oh man, how would I do that? So just, a reminder for folks, if you are doing that or that's a thing you're pursuing, like, kudos to you. That's super awesome. So yeah, this individual was, I don't know if I'd say crossroads. Like, they seemingly at a crossroads, or they're kind of looking for some advice. And it's really like, I'm in college. How should I focus my time and attention? They were kind of concerned about getting their first job. They were saying that, and I think they're outside of the US. So unfortunately, like, I'm from Canada originally, I have a better understanding of Canada. But they're also outside of the US, and I don't really know what country they're from. So I need to acknowledge up front that, and I said this in the code commute video, that like, I can't give you very clear advice if I'm not well versed in, some cultural or geographic differences and stuff like that. So I kind of have to do as best as I can, right? But they were saying, internships, like they're not really sure how they're going to do that. And really, like, how do they balance their time, right? So I'm gonna talk through this kind of at a high level, but that was sort of the framing for why I wrote about this. I think first things first, I want to acknowledge that, I think it's sort of, there's a lot of evidence around this now. Like, it's not a requirement that you go to college or go to university to be able to see success in software engineering. I know that was like years ago more perpetuated. I think there are still things today that perpetuate that, but it's not. I think there's just enough examples to know that that's not a requirement. Do I personally think that it's a great option? Yes. I think anyone that's interested in furthering their education, I think that's great. If that's, when we talk about like boot camps versus college or university and stuff like that, I'm like, they're just different. Like, college and university is going to be like years of school. Boot camps are generally not like that. So I'm not sitting here saying like one is necessarily better than the others, like universally, but I think we're just talking about different things. So if you are pursuing going to a boot camp and you're enjoying that and you're learning lots, like, I think that's tremendous. If you are in college or university or considering that path, I think that's awesome, right? I just think that it's important as software developers, like, you want to keep an open mind that in a career like this, you're going to be learning for the rest of your career. Things move really fast. Technology changes. There's always new problems to solve. There's plenty of things that you will build up fundamentals and a foundation for that you can apply to different domains. But like, throughout your career, you will find yourself in new situations and you go, oh crap, like, I don't know what this thing is, right? But here I am, I'm going to learn, I'm going to be successful at this, and you will. And this is why we talk about imposter syndrome a lot in this field. There's just because you're always learning and putting yourself into scenarios where you don't have all the experience for it. So again, I just like reminding people that, furthering your education, whatever that looks like for you, I think is a great option. So the first thing I wrote down in my newsletter around this is kind of like an order of operations. And this is based on a high level sort of reflection of what I would, I don't, I kind of want to caution myself from saying this is what I would recommend because it's general advice, but this is how my brain kind of thinks through it. So I said, like, I think if you're in school, I think it's important to stay in school, right? Like you're there, you're on a path to go do extra learning. Like I think that's important. I do think that if you need to pause, right? If you're going through stuff where it's like it's difficult financially or whatever else, if you need to pause and your path in school doesn't look perfectly linear, like I think that's fine. But I think getting a couple years into it and then stopping entirely and being like I'm just never going back, like I wouldn't recommend that. I do think that it's a good option if you're there and you've already committed some time to it, like try to finish. So that's part one of this. The next thing is like I just feel like I can't I can't overstate this, just like internships. Um I recognize that not every person has a school system or they're in a program that enables that, right? Sorry, I can see my stream playing back to me on a delayed feed, and I just watched myself closing my eyes, thinking like that. So I was laughing at it. But I just think that from my experience, I had internships, and I I sort of think that I don't want to say like the only reason I am where I am today is because of internships. I think that's a bit of a stretch, but I feel like I owe a lot of where I've gotten to in my career and what my early career looked like because of internships. I say this as someone who, and I've kind of talked about this with a few other people that have shared, some similar experiences, but I don't like, I went to university for computer engineering, and I felt like when I was in school, like taking my classes, I remember like regularly telling myself, like, why are you doing this? I didn't enjoy the school part. I didn't enjoy classes. There was a lot of math. There was, physics, chemistry, like some of the concepts, like, I didn't mind chemistry. I didn't mind physics, but like the stuff that I was doing, I'm like, I don't enjoy doing this. This isn't like, it's not for me. And then when like the math was really hard, I'm like, man, like, am I in the right spot? And then what would happen is because I had 6 internships, it was every other semester of school. It was just this super, vivid experience for me where I'm like, this is definitely the line of work that I want to be in. So every time I had the opportunity to be building software in the workplace, I was like, hell yeah, this is absolutely the right spot. And then internship would wrap up, I'd go back to school, and then, I get a few months or couple months into the semester, and I'm like, man, it's not for me. I got exams coming up. I hate this. And just like, wasn't for me. Sorry, I don't know if I can get your name right from Twitter. Iber, is that right? So sorry if I got it wrong. But they say, I've come to enjoy the theoretical part of comp sci, but I still prefer implementation. That's awesome though, right? I think, so this is, I appreciate you saying that, because what I'm talking about is a Bayray. A Bayray? A Bayray? Thank you for trying to help me say it. I have like a bit of a fear of getting people's names wrong, and I try to take the opportunity on live streams just to try. The reason for that is because you and I aren't in the same room, and if it's really that bad for me, I can just hang up this live stream. But I appreciate you trying to help me out with that. But yeah, I want to acknowledge that what I'm talking about is purely my experience in college and university. So it's great if you go and you're like, I really enjoy this, right? If there's parts of it that you love. I'm sure there were classmates of mine that I had that did enjoy physics and math and chemistry, or as a Bayray. Oh man, I'm so sorry. I'm trying. As they're saying, like, the theoretical part of computer science, like, I don't even enjoy that. So I think it's great if you can find those things, because it makes the learning so much more effective. So much more effective. So anyway, I just wanted to call that out. Like, that was my experience. But internships I found were tremendous. And I also like reminding people that, like, sure, I went to a school where, and my program was specifically a co-op program. So internships were literally a mandatory part of what we did. You had to take an internship every other semester. There's no choice. It's part of the program. So it's a little unfair when I speak about this and I'm like, oh, like internships it was an easy thing to get internships. First of all, it wasn't easy, but second of all, the reality is my program had that kind of built in. So I'm talking about it from a place of like, I don't know, it's like definitely kind of privileged in terms of what the program was like. But there are opportunities for internships. There are, your school might actually have relationships with, your school might have relationships with companies. They might not be advertised as such because you don't have a co-op program that's obvious. That might be the case, and you can still reach out to like guidance counselors and stuff like that, and they can help you with that. It might be that your school doesn't have any such thing, but there are absolutely companies that have internship programs, and you can go apply to those. And the one thing that I just really wanted to hammer home for talking about internships, I mean, there's a bunch, but one thing I just wanted to make sure I had some time to say is that I absolutely recognize that job market is very tough right now, especially for people that are new to the industry. There's a lot of competition. You have a lot of people that have more years of experience that are, whether they're laid off or they're switching jobs. Like, it just feels like you're competing against the entire world. And then there's AI, and it's like, oh, are we going to even have jobs? Why am I doing this? When it comes to internships, this is literally companies saying, we want students. We want the people that don't have the years of experience. We want to bring on students. And that's a signal, right? So for all the folks that tell me like no company's hiring juniors, and I get that it's challenging and it's frustrating. There's a lot of competition. Yes, they are. And look for companies that have internships because they are literally saying we want students. Okay, so that's just something I wanted to say. If you can't find them, I'm not saying it's trivial to find, but even if you look at big tech companies, a lot of them, if you go searching for big tech company and internship, they'll have something. You could reach out to, large to medium-sized companies and ask them if they would do internships. Lots of things to explore that way, but specifically internships are for students. If you are a student, that is a signal that they're looking for students. Interned at AWS last summer, which is a document-heavy company. I found that using theory to prove the importance of my design decisions helped. Cool. Yeah, helped my communication to stakeholders. That's really valuable, right? So, again, that can look different for different people, but the key point in that statement is like communication with stakeholders. How are you going to do that? It's not just my opinion. I think this is cool, so we should do it. Like, yeah, good luck with that. That's not engineering, right? And then goes on to say, I don't enjoy it if I'm not using it to implement a project. Interesting, right? So it's kind of like a means to getting you to that implementation. It's a foundational block for my project, and I enjoy the research. Very cool. I think that's awesome, right? So thank you for sharing that. I think that's awesome. Okay, the next thing that I wrote down on my list of order of operations, and this one's kind of funny because maybe I would put this arguably at the beginning, but because we're specifically talking about being in college and stuff, I wanted to underscore, staying to complete it. I wanted to underscore internships, but building stuff. Build. Write software, build stuff, keep doing it. It is in my opinion, the absolute best way that you can skill up. This is applicable for the rest of your career. If it's like, oh, I don't have experience doing X and I want a job doing X, I'm at work and my company doesn't teach us X. Like, the thing that's absolutely in your control is that you can go build something with X. It might not be professional experience necessarily, but you can go create some type of experience using thing X. You can learn about it. Okay. And then, especially when you are more junior and you don't have, all this professional experience to put on your resume, in my opinion, and I talk about this on my one YouTube channel called Code, or my goodness, there's too many. Dev Leader Path to Tech. I do resume reviews. It's just my opinion. But I do think that having projects as a way to talk about the things that you are trying to learn is hugely valuable. Okay, so if you are junior and you don't have, all of these years of experience, like all these other developers that have been in the industry for 10 years, the thing that you can do is show that you are interested in learning, you're taking initiative, you're building things, you're trying these things out because you can create some relative experience. Relevant? Relevance, the word I want, not relative. Maybe both, but relevant. And that's in your control to do it. Baron Byte says open source is an option. I've been contributing to a nonprofit with open source Docker and databases so far. Awesome. Love this. I have talked to a handful of people. I think this is so great. So thank you for the reminder on this. This one often slips my mind because I will be totally transparent. I don't find myself contributing to open source. And that's not because I think that I am better than it or something, but there are a lot of things that I would like to do and I don't have infinite time, but I think that's awesome if you can do it. The few people that I've talked to that do this, I think whether it's open source or not for profit, that's the other sort of bucket of things here. I've talked to a bunch of people that have done this where they're like, look, I haven't got my first like full-time paid for job. And, I've been trying to build stuff on the side and like, that's great. And then they end up finding something where if it's open source, they can contribute to it. And that's great because you start to have a little bit more of like community and team around the things that you're building. So as much as I will keep shouting from the mountaintop, like build, 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 you need to be building software and having projects. The next level of like making it more real compared to work is like, do it with other people. It's extremely likely that when you are working in your career, you're going to be building software with other people. So if you can contribute to open source, awesome. Someone's probably going to be reviewing your code. There might be an opportunity to chat with people that also contribute to it to be able to discuss what you're building, right? So these are real types of experience that will have a, really solid overlap with work you'll be doing in the workplace. The same thing for the examples that I was just mentioning for not-for-profit work, right? So I've talked to a couple people that were like, I started volunteering for, whatever place it happens to be. It's, different places. They needed a website built or they have some stack and they needed help on it. So they have a couple developers helping. And like, don't get me wrong, because I think sometimes people hear this and they're like, well, those developers should be paid. And I'm like, I'm not here to debate. This is like debating tips and stuff. Like, I'm not debating that. I'm just saying if you are looking for what feels like very relevant experience, then building things with other people is tremendous. So try doing that. The thing that I wrote after just building software was around freelancing. And I wrote that here, and I've talked about this on Code Commute a lot. I don't think personally that if you have like, whether it's freelancing or if you're like, I built an app and I have, there's 1,000 users, that to me is not like a, oh, well, I definitely gotta hire this person. Like they have an app with 1,000 users. Like that's cool. But like, I don't, I'm not hiring you for your 1,000 users, or I'm not hiring you because you are a freelancer. Like that's not why I'm hiring you personally. I do think that those are really great for building up experience and different kinds of experience. So hell yeah, like do that. But the freelancing part in this context, I wrote it down because this person, like I mentioned at the beginning of this talk, this person who wrote to me for Code Commute originally was saying, I do freelancing. So they do have clients and they were talking about balancing their time. So in my opinion, I told them in my Code Commute video, like, I think it's really, really good to be able to keep up with the freelancing. I would prefer personally, if it were me, I would, if you needed to stop freelancing and you had enough money to pay for school and you had to stop so you could study or finish projects and stuff, I would prioritize school first. That's why I put finishing first. But I do think that if you are freelancing and you have that opportunity and you need the income because you're in school, I think it's a great thing. It's just that I wouldn't put so much energy into that if like you aren't really strapped for the money, um, because it's a different set of skills, right? I personally would much rather you spend time building software and finding an outlet for that versus like, okay, how am I going to market myself? Like that just might be more time spent. And I don't, in my opinion, it might not be the best use of time. But if you can do it, hell yeah, that's awesome. Hey, Emmanuel, welcome from LinkedIn. Great to see you. Kaleidoscope, quick question. How do I scan the memory for a specific undocumented kernel function? I don't think that's like a one. It's not a one-liner kind of thing that I'm going to be able to respond to on a live stream. I think if you want some interesting answers for that, if you give something like ChatGPT a little bit more context and ask it, it can probably give you some direction around that. But you have to think about this for a moment, like what's going to be in memory if it's a specific undocumented kernel function. Like that alone is kind of an interesting statement, right? Which one is it specifically if it's undocumented? How do you know that it exists if it's not documented? Right. I have lots of questions on this, but I would personally recommend that you go honestly, and I'm not saying this sarcastically. I mean it. I don't know what PS Gitani is, to be honest. Getany? I don't know what that says. I would, and I'm again not sarcastically, I would highly recommend if you haven't tried this already. Oh, yeah, there we go. Get next process. Okay, yeah. I'm not saying that as a sort. I hope it didn't sound like facetious at all. Like, I think that you could probably have a really good conversation with like ChatGPT on that, and say like the reason I'm saying this is because I find with that kind of stuff, it's like the creative, exploratory kind of conversations I have with AI are really, really valuable. Sometimes, like, and for, I don't know, be interested in people's opinion on this, but like, do I use AI for writing code? Yes, absolutely. Do I get frustrated when I'm expecting perfect code from AI and I don't get perfect code? Yes. But the most valuable time I have with AI is generally if I'm like, okay, I have some ideas, like in this case that we see in the chat, I have an idea, I want to accomplish, something, I have a challenge in front of me. Like, how do I explore this problem space? And I think it's a really good tool to be able to just like generate ideas and kind of bounce things back and forth. And if you go off the rails with it and like it starts just giving you like the same garbage over and over, start a new chat, right? Kind of pick a different direction. But I would recommend that. And sorry, I don't have a good answer for you on that, but that's what I would suggest. After freelancing in my order of operations, I said like apply to roles, and make a habit of doing it. So we talked about internships, and I would still say like even with internships or outside of that, like I would be applying if you're okay, if you're I have to kind of add a little bit more context here. If you are in school, okay, and you are unable to get like an official internship, if you're going to apply to places, I wouldn't like mislead them. Like if you don't have the capacity for full-time work, do not do that. So let me just clarify that. I don't want to sound misleading like, hey, like you should apply for full-time work and then slack off and then just like do your degree. No, but I do think that if there's a way that you can balance these things out, this is also why it's at the end of my list. While you're in school, that's great. Maybe that's you approach it that way and it turns into an internship anyway, and you're on there, whether maybe it's contractually, I don't know. Or the other thing is if you're towards the end of your school, I would be like applying and being like, hey, like I'm available in, a couple months or whatever, and just apply, apply, apply. The reason I'm saying this is that this is there's a lot going on when it comes to job applications. Number one, you have like, where do you want to even work? Like, what type of work do you want to be doing? Right? When you're trying to survey this kind of stuff, like that's good feedback for you to look at the job descriptions. Like, what should I even be like? What project should I be building? Because if you're looking at the job descriptions, I'm just going to make this up. And every job description is like, you need Next.js. And you're like, I don't even know what Next.js is. Like, great, go start reading about it and like trying to build stuff with Next.js. If everything is like, the world going forward is MongoDB and C#, like, okay, you've never used those things, start building some stuff, right? If that's the area you want to get into and that's what's being suggested for all of the job descriptions you're seeing, this is a great opportunity for side projects. So you can get that kind of feedback loop. The next thing is that your resume is probably not going to be perfect because nothing's ever perfect. So this gives you an opportunity to try things out, right? Are you getting any kind of callback with your resume? If not, maybe you need to tune it a little bit, right? Say you start getting interviews. Again, hell yeah, that's awesome. Is your first interview going to be good? Probably not. Most people's aren't. I think even like I've interviewed a bunch, but like I think if I walked into an interview right now, I would probably be like wildly unprepared for it. Like it is a skill. It is a thing that you need to practice. So this could be an opportunity for you to be practicing these things. So I say apply and to be doing this regularly because this is the type of thing that you need to be practicing. It's literally new sets of skills. Being like making your resume and application visible. How do you stand out and be unique? How do you actually interview? Right. And I guess the first part I wanted to mention was like researching the jobs, right? But you need to be doing this stuff to improve at it. I'm just going to check the chat. If I were younger, new grad, would you prioritize job security or brand name in terms of the company you work for? Ooh, I think this depends on the person, first of all. So, there's your typical software engineer answer. It depends, but I'll qualify it. For me personally, I feel like I'm pretty conservative, and if I reflect on my own journey, I didn't go to like a brand name, so not that. For me personally, that's not what I did. I did go for something that it was a startup, but it was a startup that they were profitable without investment. And there was a pretty good indicator that like, they're in a position where it's not like, hey, next month we don't know if we can pay you kind of thing. So for me, that was like felt like good job security, at least at that time for me. And I think if I take like I would still lean into that. And the other thing I would prioritize is like I found working at a startup was insanely fast paced compared to I'm currently in big tech. The rate of learning, even though it's like chaotic and stressful and it's all over the place, for me, that worked really well. The rate of learning is like unparalleled. At least that was my experience. So I would recommend, something like a startup that doesn't feel like they're about to, burn through all their cash the next day kind of thing. And I would prioritize just like the ability to go learn stuff and move fast personally. So that's my advice. The next comment was, yeah, right now trying to do that all Canada has low new grad openings, so it's hard. Hoping it's better in the winter. Could ask if you don't mind answering. I'm from Ontario originally. I know there's lots of schools that have internship programs out there, but you're talking about new grad openings, right? Like after school, like you've already graduated. That might be a little different. Again, I've been talking about internships a lot in this talk so far because it was like in school kind of framing, but the benefit of the internship is like it's for students, right? So if you're a student looking for a job, look for internships. It can be a little bit more challenging. But again, if you find a spot that has internships and you're not sort of you're not a student anymore, so you don't match the criteria for being an intern, that might still be a good signal of a place that is willing to hire juniors. So, yeah, I don't know. That's why I said I acknowledge it's really challenging right now. So, wishing everyone success in their job search. It's not easy. So that's my priority order. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on some of these. Oh, interesting. Can only work internships in summer since I'm an international student. Is that, I mean, we might be going off the rails here, but, I mean, I'll start by saying this. Where I went to school, that didn't matter. There was a lot of international students in my class, but it was also a co-op program. So like if you were an international student, you were you were doing the same like school internship as everyone else. But yeah, wishing you success with that. Yeah, fingers crossed, man. So yeah, some of the other parts of this newsletter article that I'm going to dive into are things I probably already said because I went into a little bit of the details along the way. Next part was around why internships matter. I think I've already kind of talked about that. I think one of the things I didn't talk about is like if you're looking for internships, I've mentioned this a couple times, but I think there's a what I might call a right and a wrong way to reach out to people. By the way, is the chat legible? On Substack, it looks like it's like 2 pixels. You guys want that a little bigger or something? Is that helpful? Should it be like over my face so you guys can't see me? Yeah, let's make it a little bigger, I guess. You can still see me. People don't have to look at my head. It's bald. I think with reaching out and stuff, I think one of the challenges is that people do this in a way that's like pretty obvious that you are like, you don't care. Or it really, really feels like you don't care. What I mean by that is like, and I get this a lot because I make a bunch of content and like I try to be present on social media and stuff, but they'll say, hey, there's a guy talking about software engineering, or there's a guy, he works at Microsoft and he's got manager in his title. I'm going to message him and I'm going to give him my resume and say, give me a referral. And it's like, no, that's not a good way to do it. Will that statistically work if you do it like a ton? Like perhaps. I just think that you could have a lot better success not doing that. So what I would recommend is like, if you're looking specifically for a job or like for an internship, is that look for like managers or hiring managers or recruiters that are actively posting about jobs that are available. Okay. Talk to them about those jobs, reach out to them about those jobs. If you're unable to find, so say you're like, I see a recruiter, I'm just going to use AWS because we were talking about it in the chat. So, okay, there is a recruiter, how do I want to say this? You can't find job openings for AWS, but you see a recruiter that works at AWS. You could reach out to them, and instead of being like, refer me to a job, you could say, hey, like, noticed you're a recruiter for AWS. Like, could you show me where to look for the job postings, or are you aware of any that are upcoming? Like, thank you for your time. Not, here's my resume, like, go do the work to put me into the pipeline. Like, they're busy doing their stuff. I just don't recommend that you reach out to people in a way where you're telling them to do something for you. People do not owe you anything, and I think if you treat the conversation differently, you will have better success. So If again, replace recruiter with hiring manager, or just manager in general, or employee in general, right? Instead of going, oh, that person works at Facebook, I'm going to send them my resume and say, hey, Facebook person, refer me to a job. Don't do that. Instead, say, hey, Facebook person, I noticed you work at Facebook and I was curious if you're aware of where I can check for the open roles. Now, they're probably going to tell you the career page if you're at a big company. So when people reach out to me and they say, can you refer me? I'm like, I literally don't have any magical power to do like, oh, let me just give your resume to so and so when it's done. It's go to the careers page, right? If you have questions about the careers posted there, message me. Let's talk about them. If I can help, I'll help answer questions. But this works, I think, especially well if you're at companies that may not be advertising as aggressively with, their own career page and the whole like system like that. There are tons and tons and tons of companies outside of just big tech, tons of them. Some of them are really big. They're just not, big tech. So you can find people working there on social media, like on LinkedIn, for example, especially if they're actively posting and stuff. And you're like, okay, like, it's not like this person has a LinkedIn profile that they haven't logged into for 15 years. They're active. Cool. Like you could reach out to them and just say, hey, I'm interested in applying or interested if there are openings. Could you tell me where, like, is there a recruiter you can connect me with or like a careers page I can look at because I am interested, right? That's a lightweight ask. You're not making them review your resume or recommend you even though they don't know you. So just slightly different spin on it, and I think you'll have a little bit more success with that. Next thing I wrote about, like I know we talked about freelancing. I think, I don't know if there's any more I want to add to that, to be honest. But maybe this is worth talking about. Earlier I was talking about freelancing and how like there's sets of skills in terms of sales and marketing and that kind of stuff. And it's still true. I didn't change my mind on that. But the other thing I want to add is like, and some people that are watching this will maybe have one experience, some will have another, some will have both, but not every software engineering role has like interfacing with customers or end users. So for example, the last like 5 years that I've been at Microsoft, been working on platform teams. I do not interact with end users at all. This might sound funny, again, depending on your experience with this kind of stuff, but like I don't work with end users. My platforms that I work on absolutely affect end users. Like right now I'm, managing part of the routing plane for Office 365, specifically the firewall. If I do something and I do the wrong thing, I could have a really big impact on end users. But a lot of the time we talk about our customers of the routing plane or other platforms, they're the other teams that are internal that we work with, right? We route traffic for those teams, right? Those are the services that are running. We route the traffic for them. Those are our customers, but end users are also our customers. My point is that a lot of software engineers may go their entire career where they've never actually had to have sort of like product conversations where they're listening to customers, trying to understand their challenges, not just having someone say like, here's a technical challenge, go solve it. But when people are like, it's really interesting because if you've worked with end users or you worked really close to product teams, what they're doing is listening to the pain points that customers have. And then they are sort of like massaging the message that they're hearing. And they're like, okay, well, you might have like, I'm just making up numbers. You might have 10 people that describe a problem in 10 different ways, but you start to realize like there's a common piece here. And like, that's the thing we should be going to solve for. Like product people are very, very good at that. And engineers can be too, but this is a thing you have to spend time doing. Now, when you understand that more effectively and you work in teams where you're building software for users like that, in my experience at least, you will find it like less frustrating or less confusing when you understand part of that process, because you might be going, hey, like the technical thing we need to do here is X, and you have a product person being like, we got to build Y, and you're like, oh, we can't see eye to eye. But like, if you understand that they're trying to like interpret the end user's needs to solve their problem, this becomes a little bit more clear. So when you're doing freelancing, you are very much working on behalf of a client, right? You are working on behalf of the end user. You get to be the product manager. So that is absolutely a really cool set of skills. And some engineers don't spend a lot of their career doing that. On the LinkedIn topic, so this is from Baron Bites. I've noticed many engineers, junior, mid, senior, zero posts, yet they have solid career histories. How is that possible in this day and age not to have social presence? Well, Baron Bites, I know that you are not a plant in the audience, but I will talk. I'll talk about brand ghost. It's interesting, right? I would say that maybe some people just aren't really into social media, and I think that's okay, to be honest. But I do think that if you're someone who's looking for work and you're like, I'm trying everything, I'm reaching out to whoever I can, and nothing works, nothing at all. And if I were to ask you, like, are you posting about things that you're learning about online? Are you engaging with other software developers in some type of community? Even if that's online, on social media, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, having conversations about stuff. Like, if you're not doing that at all, like, you're not trying everything. That's still something you can do, right? And I think that I'm a little biased, but I think there's so many benefits to being able to post about software engineering topics in public. I think that a mistake people make, this includes me, especially early on, a mistake people make is that they go, well, two things. One is like, well, what would I post about? Like, I'm not an expert. I'm just learning. Yes, you are. Post about what you're learning about. And this is an opportunity to get input from other people. This is an opportunity. You might be a couple of steps ahead of someone else, and they can go, oh, Nick's learning about that thing. Like, what? Let's see about that, right? And then they can go, oh yeah, okay, Nick's trying this, Nick's trying that. Cool, okay. Like, I'm gonna go try some other variation of that, or I'm gonna try that too. You don't realize that sometimes the experience that you have, even if you're like, oh, it's minimal, it's nothing, sometimes that experience is just a little bit further ahead of someone, and it's very helpful for them. Other times you could be posting stuff and getting feedback. I think one of the biggest mistakes, though, is that when people are genuinely inexperienced at something and they go, well, I'm supposed to be posting so that I look like an authority on a topic. Everyone else knows. It's very obvious when you do this. If you are sort of not experienced in an area, trying to, masquerade as an expert, it is very, very obvious. And then what happens is that people, because it's the internet, people will probably be mean to you. And you're going to feel very discouraged. But you're I don't want to say you're doing the wrong thing. That sounds quite rude, but like, I don't think it's an ideal approach. Like, if you are genuinely learning things, post about what you're learning, right? I think it's such a good opportunity. It's free. And speaking of free, if you want to post on social media, use Brand Ghost. You can cross post to every platform. Literally just go make accounts on everything. And then register a Brand Ghost account, connect them, and then just post. You can cross post everything. I'll give you an example. Okay, one sec. Give me one sec. We're doing this. Where can I pull this up? LinkedIn. Can I pull up LinkedIn? One sec. Sure. I'm gonna pull up my business page on LinkedIn, just so I can show you an example. By the way, business pages on LinkedIn get they're terrible for impressions and stuff. It's kind of wild. One sec. Boop. Okay. So this is a post I made. This is from Brand Ghost. So I mentioned at the beginning of this live stream that my main YouTube channel hit 14,000 subscribers. Yeah. Milestone. But this is a post I made. If you follow me on social media, so Substack I had to post manually because I don't have an API. Ugh. But there's folks that are watching this on Twitter. Go to my Twitter account. Do you see the post that says DevLeader 14,000 subscribers? If you're on LinkedIn, you might have seen this one, but did you see the one that also went to my personal account? There's not many other people in chat from other platforms. But basically, I made this post to like 15 social media accounts or something ridiculous. Because I posted it to all my Code Commute social media accounts too. And I could do this. I mean, I do it for free because I make Brand Ghost, but that's the kind of thing that you can do for free. So you could write about some software engineering topic you're learning about. Hey, I'm learning about Redis. Here's a cool thing I built. And like, or here's a thing that I'm struggling with, right? Like I'm trying this out, but I'm getting stuck. You could go take a screenshot of that, write a little post and post it to like as many platforms as you use. And it's free. So do it. That's my recommendation. Like I said, I'm a little biased, but yeah, I think it's a good opportunity for folks to be able to to learn in public. So I do recommend it. Let's see. Trying to see if there's anything else that I haven't really talked about that I want to. We talked about like trying to pick projects. So if you're looking at the roles that you're interested in, look at what's in the job description. Try to, if you're reading it and you're like, I don't have that skill, that programming language, that tech stack, like while you're waiting, air quotes, waiting, while you're not working there and you would like to be working there, start building stuff relevant to what they're doing. And I think that will help a lot. The worst case is you don't end up working there. But the thing that you're doing is building up all the skills and learning about the things anyway. So you should be doing that. You might find along the way, you're like, I'm just making this up. You're like, oh, I wanted to do Android development. So at this company, so I'm going to build stuff in Kotlin and whatever. And you might start doing it and be like, wow, I hate this. I don't enjoy this at all. Great. Like now go look for other companies and some other domain and see if there's something else that you could be learning that's more enjoyable, right? So again, these are just opportunities for you to be practicing and refining. I think probably the final thing that I want to talk about here is like, because this whole thing was around how you spend time while in college. Sorry, my nose is getting stuffy. And then I can't breathe and I can't speak. So, this topic was about, or stemmed from a Code Commute conversation about being in college, how to spend time. I didn't want to write all of this or talk about all this without talking about like setting some boundaries for yourself. And this is, I think, very applicable even outside of like, you know, going to college and university and that kind of thing. I feel like a lot of people in this field, this includes me, like I am very guilty of this. It's always like, you know, what's the next thing to learn? How do I get better? How do I level up? You know, not every single person is like this, but I find it's very common. And part of me, again, biased, but part of me, like, I really appreciate that. I think it's really cool that people want to be better, but I'm using an important word there, and it's like want to be better. I think it's really awesome if you're like, hey, I'm trying to improve myself. I'm trying to learn more. I'm trying to be more skilled at something, like trying to gain more experiences. Like what's not to like about that? What's not cool about that, right? I think that's awesome. But the challenge is like when that becomes everything, right? When you're like, okay, well, all that I can do in my life is like, I need to grind side projects, or I need to get like, more freelance clients, or I need to go apply to more jobs, or like I need to be networking. I can't do anything else. When it starts to become like the only thing you do, and I just think that starts to become a little bit dangerous. And dangerous maybe sounds like a strong word, but I say dangerous because it goes unchecked. And I think that's what makes it dangerous, because I think that it's fine if you are consciously making decisions like that, being like, I'm going to pour a lot of time into this. This is a period of my life where like I am consciously saying I need to spend more time on something, right? It's going to be a few months. I'm going to be working on side projects. It's going to be a few months. I'm going to be, spending a lot of time on my resume and reaching out to people. Like, okay. But I think when like the weeks turn into months, turn into years, and you're like, this is all I do, and you kind of come up for air and you're like, uh, um, you know, that's where I think it's dangerous, right? It goes unchecked. So I think it's really important that you realize that this is not a sprint, right? I think that it's important that this is why I said earlier in the talk, right? Like you're going to be learning your entire career. You're never going to know everything. Hate to break it to you. It's not going to happen. So you're always going to be learning. You have your entire career to do this. Remember to pace yourself a little bit. What you really don't want to have happen is that you're trying to do all these things. You get overwhelmed. You stretch yourself too thin. Then you have things like, well, everything falls apart, right? Like you're not getting any freelance clients. You're not making any progress on your side projects, and you're failing at a school because you're not giving enough time for that. And then like your social life or your relationships or your family life is falling apart because you're not giving any time for that. Like you don't have infinite time. So try to make sure that you are coming up with a balance for yourself it's reasonable. And like I said, that might mean for a shorter period of time that you are, putting more time into one bucket than the others, but that's a conscious decision. Just be aware of it. So, I wrote down some ideas like, blocking off focus time, right? Throughout the week, put some focus time in your calendar, block that off. That's where you're going to focus on, doing a side project for a bit, or if you have some freelance work, doing that, or reaching out to potential clients for freelance work, or, researching jobs to apply for. Like just, block out the time and block out time for other things that are important to you outside of that. And so like what I do for myself now is like I have periods of time where like I feel guilty about playing video games, for example. And I need to remind myself that like I cannot be, if I try to be productive like for 16 hours a day straight or something, like it's just not going to work. I need to have breaks. There's nothing evil or inherently wrong about playing a video game or, stopping to watch a video or something. So like consciously schedule time to take breaks as well. And I think that'll help. But the moral of the story on that is really just like set some boundaries for yourself and try to adhere to them. You don't want to burn out from it, and you don't want everything to fall apart. So that brings us to approximately the top of the hour. So thank you so much for being here. I am still going to be taking questions because this is the point in the talk where I try to sell you on a bunch of stuff. So stick around for that. DJ Neil's here. Hey, DJ. I'm curious about your perspective on including unit integration and tests in a project. Yes. Testing adds quite a bit of time. So mainly done on smaller projects. For context, I only have freelance experience so far and some volunteering. No degree yet. No worries. Lovely question. Huge fan of this. So I am a big fan of tests. My perspective on what types of tests have changed over time. And so I'll elaborate a little bit more. I try to write code in a way that can be, and I try to be clear about this, it can be unit tested or requires very little work to make it unit testable. What I mean by that is, and I come from a .NET background, right? So I program a lot in C#. You'll hear people that program in .NET like, over abstract everything. There's interfaces for everything. I'm going to explain a little bit about my philosophy here. So I try to write code that can be unit tested. When I talk about a unit test, I mean that I can exercise like a method on a class. Generally, I'm not saying only a single method, but a public method on a class. And I want to treat it in isolation. And that means that method should not be touching the environment. So that means that there aren't side effects like writing files to disk, making web requests. And this is where it's going to deviate a little bit. That often means no database interactions. Like I'm just testing what's in the method. And that means that the boundaries to the other things outside of that method are generally mocked out. I don't use fakes or stubs or anything else that's mocked out. The reason I use mocks is that I completely control, strict mocks, I completely control what is being touched. Then people will say, well, what if the mock drifts from the real behavior? And I say, that's not the point. That's where integration tests come in. My mocks, when I do this kind of stuff, is I'm trying to cover the logic, and it's why I've shifted more to doing more integration or like end-to-end type of testing. I've shifted more to that because I can write more coverage in a test with more real pieces coming together, and things like, test databases and stuff to spin up. We can do that so fast now with Docker. So fast that like you just do it. I've written tests before, and I've seen tests before where people are writing, hey, Joseph on Substack, good to see you. I've written tests before and seen them where it's like the database calls are mocked. And then what happens is like people are checking that the query matches the query. Like it's not testing anything at the database. So you can get that coverage for free or near free because we have so many good tools for doing that. So really, I find that almost like I still write code that can be unit tested. That might mean that I'm not putting an interface on everything, but if I'm like, oh crap, I really want to write some unit tests on this and get into the weeds of the implementation details, which everyone will freak out about. But when I want to do that, I might say, cool, what are the dependencies passed into this thing? If I need to make them an interface to mock it in .NET, then I'm going to do it. It's more and more and more rare, though, because a lot of the time I can get away with some end-to-end or functional integration test, and the only things I'm mocking are the services that I do not control. So in Brand Ghost, for example, we post to all these social media platforms. I don't write tests that go post to LinkedIn or post to Facebook. So when I'm about to touch their API, that's mocked. Even in an integration test, it's mocked. And the point is that I'm not actually testing that. If I need a test that tells me, am I properly integrating with the Facebook API? In Brand Ghost, I don't have tests like that. In digital forensics, we used to write some tests that would actually go, we'd have some phones, I did a lot of mobile digital forensics, we'd have some phones that would update and some phones that would never update. And we'd have some that would update because if there was a breaking change, we would update the phone, we would recover the information from it, and if it stopped working, we're like, update broke the behavior. But that's something where it's like, that's really like a pretty complicated test. The more complicated these tests get with the setup and sort of the environmental variables, harder they are for reproducibility, the more brittle they are. People talk about tests being brittle with like unit tests and refactoring code. My God, let me tell you about writing tests that are like covering, user interfaces and things being clicked and stuff, and someone moves something by a pixel and the whole test breaks. Or like there's a race condition to click a button because it takes a little bit longer to render or something. I don't like, if you're writing really big, long running tests like that, they really cannot be asserting on a lot because they'll be such a pain in the, I don't swear much on this channel. They'll be such a pain in the butt that it's not worth it. So I like having a mixed, but I generally find myself more integration tests with real databases and unit tests when I have complicated logic that I really want to make sure does what I expect. SQLite and Dev is fine. Supabase and Prod, if they are, I would say pick database engines that are the same if you can. And that also means, I've seen this is great. I've seen people, if you do SQLite, for example, if you're using SQLite even in prod, because like even mobile apps and stuff do that. I've seen people try to do like, You can do an in-memory SQLite database and it will still use the SQLite database engine. But I've seen other people being like, oh, I'm like for entity framework, I'm going to use like an in-memory provider. And then what happens is like their link doesn't get converted into actual SQL. So their test pass, and then they go to use it in production and like it doesn't work because it's completely different. False sense of confidence. But yeah, I would say when you start doing like integration tests and stuff, like that's your opportunity to use as much real as you can, because that's testing the pieces working together. I like a mix though. Hope that helps answer. DJ, if you want, like if that doesn't make a lot of sense, I have a handful of YouTube videos on that, on DevLeader. And if you watch them and you're like, that still doesn't help, I don't know what you're talking about, just message me on Twitter or LinkedIn, whatever. Tell me honestly, and I'll just make more videos if that's helpful content. So please do. Would be happy to help. Let's make that chat a little smaller. Okay, I'm going to flip over to here. So for folks that missed it at the beginning, weekly.devleader.ca is where my newsletter is. So this is generally what the live stream topic will be. So this is the one that I read through. That is an AI picture of my face. So it looks really close to me, but it's not actually me. Thanks, Nano Banana, for that. But yeah, you can check this out for what the live stream topics will be. You don't have to subscribe, so please don't if you're not interested in that. I think for folks that are watching the live stream on YouTube, you are at DevLeader Podcast. So thank you for being here. This is my podcast channel. And so on this channel is obviously the live stream, but I also interview other software engineers, do a lot of career journey kind of conversations. And so there's a couple people like, so a couple, if you watch YouTube videos, especially for .NET development, so like Derek Comartin's here, he's Code Opinion. Dan is Code Wrinkles. He's awesome. They're both awesome. Everyone on here is awesome. Ethan Evans, he's blown up a lot since I went on, not because of our podcast, but since the podcast, he's blown up a lot. Rita makes a lot of like short form content and stuff, a lot of skits and stuff in software engineering, especially on Instagram and TikTok. Her videos they're really funny. Who else? There's Scott Hanselman. I think a lot of people know Scott. He's amazing. But yeah, lots of really cool people. Hassan Habib, also another YouTuber. But yeah, it's a lot of fun to be able to chat with folks. I recently just interviewed a former classmate of mine, which is super cool. I'm going to see if I can get a couple more classmates from university on. And then, of course, a live stream every Monday, 7 p.m. Pacific. So thank you for being here. This is my main channel, DevLeader. I'll put that into the chat. This is the one that just got to 14,000 subscribers, which is pretty cool. But primarily, like I moved this channel over to being just programming tutorials and AI development. So historically, it had like the podcast and everything else on there. My live streams are done from here. So if you want my programming content, it's at DevLeader on YouTube. Then there's Code Commute. Code Commute is the channel that I was mentioning earlier. So the live streams and stuff, the topics generally come from Code Commute. So if you're curious about how it works, Code Commute, or you can go to codecommute.com, submit questions. I make vlog entries and answer them for people. This is my way of sort of kind of doing a couple things at once. One, if I have to drive to work, I hate commuting, first of all. Some people like it. I don't. I find it's a huge waste of time. So I'm like, I want to be productive because I'm obsessed with trying to be productive. And I have this other thing where I get a lot of people, and I'm thankful for it, but a lot of people reach out with questions. And I found originally I was spending a lot of time like replying in a chat message, and I'm like, this doesn't really scale. So I said, why don't, if people are comfortable, like, why don't I just make a video answering their question? That way I don't have to sit on my phone trying to type back responses to people, and I can potentially help other people. So that's how Code Commute was born. And so I generally look at the previous week. I look at whatever video had the most views or most comments and engagement, and then write a newsletter article on it. So this one was here. I'm a developer in college. What path should I focus on? Right. So this is just me driving to work. My internet connection terrible or something? It's a little shaky. I'm not speeding or anything. I don't do that. So that's Code Commute. And then my other channel is Dev Leader Path to Tech. This is where I do resume reviews. So you can check that out. Resume reviews are totally free. For now, I don't plan on changing that. But you can submit a resume. Just watch any video I explain how to submit them. They're not resume grilling sessions. They're not me making fun of resumes. They are me trying to provide, honest feedback. So if there's stuff I think you're doing well, I'll call it out. If there's stuff I think you can improve, based on my opinion, I'll call it out. But that's me trying to help. And then Brand Ghost is the last one. Actually, no, I have courses. I gotta talk about courses, folks. Because I have, not that page, not that one. This one. Courses. So I do have courses. I think most of my courses now are on Dome Train Pro. So Dome Train, can't speak, Dome Train Pro, there is savings. There are sales, like at the top of this, 40% off. But I think the courses I have, I'm just going to put the link here. I think the courses I have are on Pro now. But I have like the intro to programming courses for C#. And then I have a couple other C# ones. I have some more like soft skills, career development stuff that I paired up with Ryan Murphy on. So you can check those out. And I haven't started recording it yet, but I have another course that I'm going to be starting. I have official approval and sign off to do it. I am very excited. I just have to start. And I was not starting yet because my lens broke. The lens that you're watching this through, let me go back to this silly view. This lens broke. Actually, long story, this lens that you're looking at originally broke like 2 years ago or a year ago. So I got another lens and it broke. And when I say it broke, I mean it stopped focusing. So this, will it even do it? Yeah, it wouldn't change the focus. So I would have to like keep my head in the right spot. And I was noticing there's some videos I'm doing and I'm like, the whole video is blurry. So I went to go get it repaired or ask about getting it repaired. And the guy was like, look, he's like, this lens is totally bricked. He's like, you have to send it back to Sony. And I'm like, ugh, because that's going to take forever and cost another whole lens. And I brought this lens that was broken before and he tried it on a camera and he said, it works perfectly. So now I have a working lens again, even though it was broken for like a year. So anyway, I'm going to start recording that course. I'm super excited to share that one when it's ready. It will be my best course ever. I'm not sure, but it will be my best so far. Brand Ghost. I'm not sharing my screen. Here we are. Brand Ghost. We are running a sale. Give me one sec. I gotta move some stuff over. Yeah, there we are. So Brand Ghost is the social media and scheduling and cross-posting platform I mentioned earlier in the stream. So there's Brand Ghost going into the chat. It's just brandghost.ai. This is what I use for posting all of my social media content across every platform. So if you read or watch my content anywhere, it's posted through Brand Ghost. So this is the system I build originally for myself, and then I give away with my team the cross-posting and scheduling. It's unlimited. The paid-for features are some of the things that I use, so things like what we call topic streams. That allows me, or you, if you're interested in it, it allows you to create content, add it into like a queue, and it will eventually repost that content over time. So spoiler alert, if you see me posting blog articles that are not my newsletter, I haven't written a technical blog article in over a year. So you're seeing posts that are being repeated. But I wrote those blog articles, and hopefully they are still valuable a year later. So I use Brand Ghost for that kind of thing. If you are a small business and trying to get better at posting more consistently with your social media, please reach out to me. If you know someone who has a small business kind of struggling with that, or you think they could do better, have them reach out to me. I'm happy to have a conversation with them. I'm happy to, we can set up trials and stuff that are extended and discounted. I am a strong believer, and I've said this even with my team that's building this with me. I said, look, it's a business. Not all businesses will be successful. I said, I can accept that, maybe Brand Ghost isn't something that pans out as a business, but I said Brand Ghost can and will never die because I cannot operate social media without Brand Ghost. So as long as I am posting content on the internet, Brand Ghost will exist. I can't do content any other way without it now. And I'm very much a firm believer in how that works. And I think that if people are struggling with being consistent or trying to post content regularly because they're burnt out from it, they're not feeling creative, it's too much of a pain in the butt to try copying and pasting the same post to LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, you name it. You could do it for a week maybe, and then you're like, I hate myself. There's a better way. Use Brand Ghost. We'll post everywhere for you. Happy to help if you have questions. And like I said, there is a sale that's going on right now. $10 a month gets you the Essentials package. If you jump over to the pricing, come on, website. I feel like my whole internet's not going so hot this morning or this evening. There we go. Oh no. Why did that happen? That's so weird. Anyway, Essentials package. It's right here. Instead of posting, it's downloading. Nice. Very cool. And see, what you could do is you could use Brand Ghost to post about your personal project on the internet across all the socials. But yeah, so it's we got a discount on for the Essentials package, but otherwise, if you're like, hey, I don't know if I want to pay for this because I don't make money from social media, or I don't know what I'm doing yet, start with the free. There's a trial. You can try everything out and then go from there. So I think that's it, folks. Thanks for listening to what I got to say. I appreciate you being here. And of course, every Monday, 7 p.m. Pacific, we'll do the same thing. So reminder, if you cannot wait because you're so excited for the next live stream, which is all of you I know, join me on Code Commute. Same type of thing. It's just that there isn't a chat because I can't respond in the chat while I'm driving. That would be absurd. But the same type of topics and stuff. And you can submit questions and stuff, and I'm happy to answer. So again, thanks for being here. I appreciate all of you, and I'll see you next time.